Welcome to another episode of Pursuit. Tonight we are wrapping up the book of Philippians, all right? And after such an eventful start, we're going to start with a strong question. What was your favorite gift that you have ever received?
I honestly don't know.
I'm going to say, I don't know if this counts as a gift that I have received, but I've received the benefits of this gift. And it is this couch. Because that last 20 minutes alone, those last 20 minutes alone paid for the couch.
You're welcome.
In my book.
You're welcome. Is that your final answer?
Until I think of a better one.
I really don't know.
Well, if it wasn't your most favorite, what's like a memorable gift?
So it was honestly, a
watch. I don't know. He's a watch guy.
I am. You know what's funny? She actually bought me a watch too, but that's a separate story. I didn't even think of that. No, I was gonna say a
Oh my God.
I was gonna say that so someone had bought me Starbucks, right? But here's why it sticks out in my head. Because at the time, normally I was in the group that would buy stuff for people, right? Which I'm not complaining about because I still offer now, so it's not a big deal. What was interesting was that this person surprised me with it.
So it was a thought more than the actual.
Yeah. And it was like my favorite drink, and I think I'd only mentioned it like once. So the thought that went into, okay, they paid enough attention to me to know, hey, this is my favorite drink, like the exact way I want it from Starbucks. They got it for me. I was like, okay, that's pretty memorable.
So the sentimentality of the gift.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, because like, honestly, the only other thing, I'm not even wearing it. There is a watch I got that I don't even think the actual. I just like the watch a lot and I wear it all the time, so I guess that would count too. But I think that Starbucks drink stands out to me.
Solid. I think the thing is, I don't want to say that this one gift someone got me is like the best gift I've ever received because I feel bad for the other people that have gotten me things.
Oh, I don't.
So, but like growing up, Auntie Angela and Uncle Barry would buy me, Kale, and Amber something along the same lines just because we were around the age group that like played together most often. So one year they got us 3DSs.
Okay.
And I think that was pretty solid. And then they also got us the game. It was like a singular game card, but it had like a whole bunch of games on it.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
So that was a solid. Oh, and they also got us pillow pets. I still use mine sometimes. So I think those are some of the best gifts I've received, and they're all from when I was like a child.
I don't think
I think it's the thought because there's a lot of childhood memories that came from the gift. So it's more so what the gift has brought versus the actual tangible gift.
Fair enough. I think that makes sense. Yeah, no, because I mean, I'm trying to think like the only other thing that really stands out to me is I got a Sega Genesis.
Ooh.
Right? But my parents bought it for me on the first day of kindergarten, which made, like, looking back on it, made 0 sense to buy me my first video game system on my first day of school. It made 0 sense.
Wait, what was the occasion? Because your birthday's in March.
It was because I was starting school.
Oh.
That was the only occasion.
So they bought you a distraction.
Yes. Like, I feel like this explains why I don't like school.
I was going to say, did you get in trouble for playing it
100%.
during, like, when you should be doing school stuff?
Yeah. Damn. Actually, no, not really, because we only had, like, the one TV you can plug into, like, in the living room.
Yeah.
So I probably couldn't even play it that much. But I was definitely getting in trouble for that. But yeah.
He bought you a Sega Genesis for starting kindergarten. That's dope.
Yep.
Has anything ever topped that
What? What do you
in
mean?
terms of like the joy you have received from it?
As far as gifts, maybe not. I can't think of a gift that I got. Yo, I just realized that this ex-girlfriend might have been the most thoughtful person because I think every gift that comes to mind is from her, and I'm very,
Why
very
does
upset
that
about
make her the most awful person?
the most thoughtful,
Oh,
not awful, the most thoughtful person.
whoops.
Because she had gotten me like a 3DS, and there's only one game I wanted.
Mm.
She got it for me, and I was like, dang, it's messed up.
So in this portion of Philippians, Paul is kind of talking about being content, right?
Okay. I'm over here complaining about an ex-girlfriend. Like, yeah, let's talk about being content.
Yeah. I was trying to get a better segue, but then you brought that situation up.
Because
So
you kept prying.
no, I just asked,
You
has
kept
there
prying.
been another gift?
You know, I came up with
that
the
has
Sega
topped
Genesis
it?
thing. I thought that was good.
It was
and
good.
And you couldn't leave it alone.
I couldn't.
Exactly. So this is your fault.
No. You just kept expanding. Anyways. So in this from verses we're continuing Philippians 4. We're starting from verse 10 to 23. So just the rest of the chapter.
Yep.
And so the title in my version that I have for this section is thanks for their gifts. So Paul kind of goes into saying that like I've had a lot and I've had nothing. Like I've had everything I've ever needed and then I've been shipwrecked. I've been jailed. I've been like homeless basically. Like I've had nothing. And in all of that, I still what does the verse actually say? So in the end of verse 12, or like the second part of verse 12, he says, I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. And then in 13 he says, I can do all this through him who gives me strength. And I think that concept of being content solely because of the strength that you get from God is a concept that we've learned or heard about throughout our whole lives, right? Like you can always be content because God gives you strength. But I think when you look at it in the context of someone that's actually had everything he could ever need, but then turned around and he was imprisoned, or he was shipwrecked, or like he went from the highest highs to the lowest lows, and he still says to rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. And that kind of I don't want to say it's mind-blowing, but it's very hard to wrap your mind around the fact that you can be content despite the highs and the lows.
You know, it's interesting because Philippians 4:13 is such a
widely known.
Yeah. Like I remember as a kid, I had like my parents had like a banner thing like in my room, like on the top. So like I would always see it and things like that. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Yet we often don't look at what leads Paul to say that, right? Like we all just think like, okay, I'm going through hard times. I can do all things through Christ strengthens me. But like it's so much more than that. Like I feel like I don't know if it's like we use it as like a mantra. I don't know what the right term is for it.
Like a mantra, like an affirmation.
Yes, like an affirmation, right? Like, okay, something bad happened. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, right? Yet that's not perfect example. You're in school, you didn't study for a test. I'm a pass because I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Right? Yo, if you've never said that prayer, I've said that prayer many times in school. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me on a Spanish test, and I have no understanding of Spanish. I mean, I did pass though, so maybe I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. That's what the verse says. Verbatim.
I feel like I worked against my own point.
Yeah.
So my point being is, as you were saying, right? Paul goes through all this hardship, when he talks about I can do all things through Christ. It's not like we were saying last week with the like you get
Like the
stuck
joy.
behind. No,
Oh,
you
yeah.
get stuck behind
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
on the escalator. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, to give me the patience to not like push him out the way. Like that's not what he's saying.
It's also not what we were saying
All right,
for the most part.
but I think he's looking at, look, I've learned a secret in all of my trials and suffering and all the good times, which is Christ is that constant that gets me through everything.
Yeah. So instead of it just being like, hey, you should just be joyful and rejoice despite your suffering, you can rely on the fact that Christ is the one that is bringing you that joy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So then, if we know then that our joy comes from Christ and having that relationship with him, why is it so hard for us to be content in the situations that we go through and in your life?
I want to say it's hard because more than likely I'm going to attribute that to selfishness, right? Of we always want more, right? You know, we're always comparing ourselves to, and what's that old saying? The Joneses, right?
Oh yeah, keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah. Which interestingly enough is now keeping up with the Kardashians, right? Like that's
where it came from, right?
Right. So if all we're focused on, I think, is stuff and how much stuff can I attain, then I think contentment will always be out of reach because there's always something else you can get. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that.
Okay, you sounded like you had more things to go with there. And I think that was the difference between like a lot of people within like the early church and Paul, because a lot of times you look at these tangible things as a way to say like, oh, I've been blessed because I have all of these things and I acquire things, whereas Paul is saying like, I don't need to have things to know that God, Christ is within me, and to know that I am like living in his gospel, like I am living in Christ.
Yep. No, I agree. Sorry, I forgot to put my phone on do not disturb. But no, I definitely agree. I mean, again, I'm not saying we shouldn't take comfort in the fact that he's saying, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, understand what it took for him to say
to be
that.
able to say that. Yeah.
It wasn't just some like I got myself in a bad situation, but Christ is gonna get me out. No, it's I have suffered for the gospel's sake, and I've also been blessed by the gospel, and I know I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay, so question.
Go for it.
Have you ever experienced genuine contentment?
I was just so ready to whatever question you said.
Yeah.
Just say. I was gonna just say no. And now I feel like I should probably think about this for a second.
Yeah, just a little bit.
See, I feel like the fact that you put genuine contentment,
it changes things a little bit,
it changes
right?
it, right? If it was just, have you ever felt contentment? Yeah. Have I felt genuine? What is genuine contentment? Like
how does it differ from?
Yeah.
Right. I guess it's more than just a momentary, like, I'm content in this situation. Because, like, I can have a really good meal and be content with it versus, like, a genuine, like, day-to-day contentment with the quality of my life and the relationships that I have.
Okay, then yes, I have. I don't know what else to even say to that. I mean, I definitely have felt that genuine contentment you're talking about. You know, I do think that feeling that was something that took time. Like it was something that I had to work at, if that makes sense. Like we were talking about last week in the first half of chapter 4, right? Rejoice in the Lord always. Like it was something I had to learn to be content.
Yes. I think I also have, but it's also that feeling of like it's more than that superficial joy that you have. That's just like I'm just going to act happy and I'm going to be happy. Because when I was younger and I was learning about the difference between contentment and happiness, how it was kind of explained to me is that like happiness is like this not like a superficial feeling, but it's very, I guess it kind of is a superficial feeling. It's very momentary. It's very like it's an emotion that you feel. Whereas contentment is a lot deeper. It's like you wouldn't change a thing. Like you're very I don't want to use the word in the definition, but you're very content. Like you're very satisfied with what you have.
I was
And
actually
you're
going to say
not
satisfied. I like that we're on the same page.
unagi.
Yep.
But you're very satisfied with what you have. Like you wouldn't be searching for more things. And I think it is part of that human nature, like that fleshly desire to constantly acquire more than what you have. Just because in society, like the more you have, the better your life is supposed to be, right? Like the more you can obtain, it's like the more successful that you are. So like I can have one car or I can have 3. I may not have parking space for all of them, but the fact that I can obtain 3 vehicles says I'm more successful than the person that cannot.
Yeah.
Like the quality of their life might be better, but they don't have what I have.
So, you're talking about this, like having 3 cars and no place to park and stuff.
Mhm.
So there's actually a lady that lives nearby the church that actually had like a corner house, a very big corner house. So she has a car. Her daughter, each of like she had two girls. Each one had a car, and she was so annoyed that she couldn't park their cars on the street. And when they have to like go to school, they all have to like wake up and like shuffle cars around. That she sold her huge corner house with a huge driveway at a loss to move into an apartment. But she had street parking.
Why didn't they park in the driveway?
She didn't want to have to switch around the cars every time one of them had to go out.
It was like a single file driveway.
I guess so.
Why couldn't they just have the person that was leaving first park last?
I don't know. I mean, we're talking about contentment, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, cause I met her just through work, and she was telling me, and I was just like, you gave up that house to live in like just like a second floor apartment? Like you had a full 2-story house
Yeah.
with a huge yard, like just because you couldn't park, like
I think that's, yeah.
talk about being like content. Like what? That's crazy. That's like it's just crazy that's how like, but that was her mindset.
I mean, to each their own, you know?
Apparently so.
Well, speaking of troubles, right? In verse 14,
ominous transition.
Speaking of troubles. So in verse 14 and 15, Paul goes on to say to the church of Philippi, right? The church the Philippian church,
yes,
that it was good of you to share in my troubles, as you Philippians know, in the early days of your acquaintance with the gospel, when I set out from Macedonia, not one church shared with me in the matter of giving and receiving except for you. Even when I was in Thessalonica, you sent me aid more than once when I was in need. Not that I desire your gifts. What I desire is that more be credited to your account. I have received full payment and have more than enough. I am amply supplied now that I have received from Epaphroditus the gifts you sent. Right? So he goes on to say, like, I've received all these gifts. I would have been fine in my suffering, right? but I have received these gifts from you, and for that I am like grateful to you. But he closes it out saying, these gifts that you have offered to me, they're a fragrant offering, an acceptable sacrifice pleasing to God. And my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of his glory in Christ Jesus. And then the last part of that section is, to our God and Father be glory forever and ever. Amen. So and when he's thanking the church of when he's thanking the Philippian church, he he kind
Of
of
all the names you said, that's like the easiest one you just read.
but it's the tenses that get me. It's the tenses. I don't want to be wrong in my like the whole in and on Long Island thing. That's kind of what
Let's not get
it's doing
sidetracked
in my
right now.
brain. That's what it's doing in my brain. The church of or the church in Philippi. Anyways, but so how in regards to Paul's response to their gift, I think it's good to note that they have been faithfully generous to him regardless of his situation and his circumstances. But I think it's also good to note that Paul comes back and he brings it back like, hey, I know that these gifts are physically from you, but I know that they're a gift from God because he has like placed me in your life and you in mine. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you look like you had something to say.
No, I'm good.
Wow, is this what it's like talking to me?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just sitting here content.
And that's how I feel. Right? So, question. Have you ever been on the receiving end of someone that generous? Which I feel like you kind of alluded to this before with that person in your life that had all these thoughtful gifts for you.
Man, all right. I guess so. I mean, I when I think of what Paul is talking about here, where it's like they're kind of giving, like in abundance. I don't know if necessarily that person was giving out of like giving me things in abundance necessarily, but I think the thought was definitely there of abundance, if that makes sense. Like it wasn't physically a lot. Like it wasn't like they weren't buying me Starbucks like every day or something like that, or every time we saw each other. It was like,
like
it was
the
there was one
effort,
time.
I guess, or
Yeah,
like
I think
the
the
sentiment
effort
behind
and
it.
the amount of energy that went into was definitely of abundance, and it was definitely, I think it was an extravagant amount of energy that went into the gift. So yeah, I think I have been on the receiving end of that. How about you?
Well, that wasn't the question that I was gonna ask, but I wasn't gonna answer. I was gonna ask you another question.
All right, so hit me with the next one. Let's
All right,
go.
next one. How did you respond to it?
I was definitely grateful. Um, I know in some cases, I mean, like the Starbucks thing was like it was just like a typical day, so like it was whatever. Some of the other stuff the person had bought for me was like Christmas or something, so like we had that like there was like a mutual exchange. And I like to think I was thoughtful in the gift that I got that said person. Um, I'm not gonna say what it is because I feel like compared to what they got me, it doesn't really compare now. Like out of
Like
context,
tangibly, yeah.
like out of context of like the friendship, like it doesn't make sense. If I just say like, hey, I got you this. But I'm not gonna lie, I totally forgot what your question is.
How did you respond to the generosity?
That's what that was your question. I was thinking about the gift. No, so yeah, I mean, I definitely was thankful. Definitely like, I think for me, I went out of my way to make sure the person knew I was grateful.
Okay.
More so than I would like when my like someone just was to buy me like a gift or something, and be like, "Oh, hey, thanks." Like like oh, I like. It wasn't just like yo, like I really like this gift. Like no, like I made sure that person like, hey, this meant something to me that you did this. And I would like to say I tried to reciprocate that level of energy as best as I could.
Okay. So when Paul was talking to the church about it, I was gonna say that keeps tripping me up. The church of what is it?
Say the Philippian church.
But what is the correct tense? Is it the church of Philippi?
I mean, you can say both, really, because it's the church of Philippi, but it's also a church in Philippi. So I feel both would be correct.
Okay. This is how my brain works. I'm sorry. So when Paul is thanking the church of Philippi for the gifts, he kind of goes back to remind them, like, hey, out of your good deeds and out of your sacrifices towards me, God will recognize you for this. Have you and God will provide for them as a result. So have you ever had to trust in God's provision that he will, like, as a result of your good deeds, regardless, like for this person or for like good deeds in general? Have you ever had to rely on the fact that God will provide for you?
Yes. There's been times where it it's kind of weird, like when I think when there's times to like give like special gifts and stuff in the church, right? One of the things, and I'm not sure if it was my dad or our Pastor Singh had said it, but this was a long time ago, where they were like, more often than not, that like first thought, or like that first amount that pops into your head, is probably like the Holy Spirit nudging you like how much to give. Honestly, at this point I don't even know how true that is or not, but at the time I took it to heart. Now at the time I was like a teenager, so the first thought was like $20, right? So looking back on whatever, then eventually now I'm in college, I'm working now, I have more than $20 in my pocket. So when it comes to giving, the first number, like I remember the first time it happened, the first number was like really, really high. And I was like, God, is that really you? Because that's going to hurt me to give that amount. And I felt him say like, yeah, no, that was me. And I was like, really? You sure? Like and it's a good thing that like during a church service, I'm in the back, so I have time before the ushers get to me, because this is happening like
real time.
I'm watching the ushers make their way to the back of the building. And I'm just like, all right, God, like, because I don't think I can take this back. Like, there's no like, I can't be like, hey,
cancel
guys,
the request.
Yeah, I can't cancel this. And he was like, no, this is it. And I was like, I got bills though. And he was like, yeah, no, I know. And I had to really trust in it. I mean, there was also that mission trip I had done, and that was a lot of like, I've never had to raise that much money. I think it was like $3,500 or something, and that was totally just me trusting God. Hey, can you provide for this? And He did. So, yeah.
So then, what kind of role does trust play in being contentment? Can you be content without trusting?
No. I don't think you can, because, I mean, just think of a friend that you have that you're content with, right? I don't think you can be content in your friendship with them while you distrust them, right? I think if you have doubts about your friend,
that's not really a friend.
No, I think you can be friends with someone and you might feel, hey, are they keeping something from me?
Okay.
Right? Like you haven't pulled the plug on the friendship yet, right?
Okay.
But if you're at that point, you're probably not content with the friendship.
Yeah.
Right? The friendships that I'm truly content with, I'm not worried about that person in that friendship, right? What is that? You hear that?
I
right?
thought that was the heat kicking on.
Okay. It's probably not.
Yeah, now that it stopped.
Yeah. All right. That was weird. But yeah, no, I think talking about just friendships and being content, the friends that I'm content with, I trust them. I'm not worried about saying something or doing something wrong in front of them. Or if I was, I feel like I can trust them to be. That's not the heat. I'm telling
No,
you that
it's
right now.
not.
I really hope that's not the weather. I can trust
It's the
them.
rain. It's the rain.
Wow. Um,
My car's about to float away.
I trust them. So even if I do or say something wrong, I can trust them to the way Paul spoke to those two girls in the earlier chapters.
Yeah.
I can
You mean
I
me and
can
you?
trust what?
Me and you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
sorry.
really aggressive.
This is aggressive now. All right.
Are you telling us to wrap it up? Is this a sign?
I'm sorry for all those watching. Like it.
Oh, I
it
thought you would have cut it out.
I don't know because I'm gonna have to like spurse my
you
answer
have to
in.
splice it.
But
Wow.
I don't even know what I was saying. Go ahead. I honestly don't know what I'm talking about at this point.
We're trusting content friends.
Yes. Okay. So all right. So what about you? Because you have just asked me
Yeah,
10
I've asked
questions,
a lot of questions.
without trying to give an answer, and that has not gone.
Which one would you like me to answer?
Um.
Or what would you like to ask me?
Well, I think the same question goes out to you. How do you feel about the role of trust in contentment?
I don't think you can be truly content without trusting the plan that God has for you. Just because until you trust that He has it all figured out for you, until you trust that that your life is in His hands and He is guiding your footsteps, you're always going to be searching for something, whether it's like something physical, tangible that you can hold, or like mental comfort. Until you can fully rest in the fact that you are in like the God's hands, you can't be content with what you have. It's just the uncertainty of like what could be would just knock you back all the time.
And I think too that I think it's hard to trust stuff.
Like physical things.
Yeah. Right. Like I know we had kind of spoke earlier about like people and being content or like satisfied in what they have, and it's never enough because stuff is perishable.
Yep.
Right. So you have 3 cars, but can you trust in your 3 cars? Because your cars can break down. You can wake up one day and all 3 cars broke down. Someone vandalized. Like so many things can happen, right? So it is hard to trust in these things. So I think it's hard to be content in these things because they're by nature untrustworthy. Right? I mean, like even now, like I can only imagine, like we see what's going on in Europe, and you see how like the money, I forget what it's called in Russia, like it's like pennies on the dollar.
Rubles. Yep.
Yeah, right. I'm only thinking of the guy that had all this money like saved in the bank. That has nothing to do with what's happening with the government of Russia and Ukraine, and all of his wealth is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because the the value of it is gone, right? And one of the things when I saw those headlines, the first thing I thought is that could probably happen with the U.S. dollar. So like all the money I have in the bank, I'll still have X amount,
but
it
won't
less. It won't be worth
Yeah.
X anymore. And it's like, can I really trust in that? Can I be content in this value? And one of the things like I've noticed, like personally, is like I've always like in my head, I'm like I always kind of want more because of that.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I can't trust that at $100, that value will still be $100 come tomorrow. But if I can get another 100, I know I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I get that, it's like, yeah, but this 100 is it really gonna make a difference? Then we get another 100 and another, and then
it's like when you're a kid and you think like, oh, $10,000 is so much money, and then when you grow up and you see the actual value of a dollar and you see like that things can only take you thus far, you're always like striving to get more because one, the more money you have, the more successful you'll be, like, to the world.
Mm.
And, like, 2, who doesn't want to have, like, a good cushion for them just in case they need it? You're just gonna have to cut that out. You're just gonna have to cut that out.
But yeah, I think what's interesting though is as we're talking about trying to be content, when we talk about being content because of God, I just think that makes so much more sense because we spoke about him being this eternal being and having that eternal mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
How could you not trust in someone who is eternal?
Yeah.
Who's not gonna lose value, right? I mean, you're actually trusting in the person that assigns value to
that
things,
thing, yeah.
right? You're not trusting in the things that he values. You're trusting in the guy that creates it and assigns value. So if you're trusting in him, then you really should be content because I think there's nothing higher that you could trust in.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, like, what is, of this chapter, of this study of Philippians, I guess, for the book, what would be one thing that you take away? But I feel like that's a solid place to, like, wrap it up. Like, if you can't be content with the creator of all things, you're never going to be content with the things that he's creating.
Yep. You can't
put that on a shirt.
There we go. I got a shirt person now.
Ooh. I have a lot of sayings.
I got a shirt person. So
you should get one that just has ellipses. Yeah.
We could. We'll talk after.
Yeah, so if you can't be content with the creator of things, you'll never be content with the things. And I think that's a decent place to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So as we conclude the study of Philippians, I hope you've taken something from it. I hope you've learned something more than you've learned about us. I don't think Kevin and I can do another episode together. I feel like there's too many tangents.
I blame it on you. I'm always focused. I am always focused.
On the right things?
I didn't say that. I said I'm always focused.
Anyways.
Don't put words in my mouth.
It was a question. It was a follow-up.
Let's be honest. You're the one that spent 20 minutes trying to get me to launch you off of the couch.
That was before the episode started. I hit my funny bone. I hit my knee reflex just now.
All right, guys. That's been another episode of Pursuit. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you enjoyed this study on Philippians. I think is that what we started this year with? Philippians? Yes, it is.
I think so.
Yeah. So definitely hope you enjoyed it. We have some interesting things coming up in the next few weeks.
I hope so. I'm kidding.
But yeah, definitely hope to see you again next week for another episode. And trust in God and be content.
Amen.
And be on the lookout for t-shirts.
Ooh! I love t-shirts. All right.